a couple of kids who grew up loving G.I. Joe. And Hasbro was recently nice enough to post the original 5 episodes of the G.I. Joe miniseries that got us all really, really hooked. And we thought it would be fun as people who worked on G.I. Joe and still love it and haven't seen it for a really long time to sit and watch it again together. And if you can imagine that we are 8 to 9 years old sitting in our friend's house watching G.I. Joe again after school, that's what this is going to be. You're not going to get anything educational. You're not going to get anything about a deeper meaning. You're not going to get to know me. You're not going to get to know Brandon. You're not going to get to know Robert because he's impenetrable. I mean, who can really know Robert Atkins?
Unknowable.
Unknowable. Unknowable. The man is perfection. We get that.
Yeah.
So who can really know perfection? So anyway, the idea is to have fun watching G.I. Joe together and recapture some of what we loved when we were kids and talk about what we loved about it then and why we still love it now.
Yo, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'm really pumped to get into this. I think it'd just be a chance for us to, I don't know, just to revisit it. I'm excited to get into it. One of the things that whenever I listen or watch an old Joe episode, one of the first things that triggers is that sound, right? All the sound effects and the music, like, just drops you right into that nostalgia. So I think this miniseries, some of them, I mean, I'm not like a ton, guys, obviously, but just I remember watching it. It was maybe I think 4 or 5 or something like that. And it was my older sister Elaine who always made sure it was on, like, for us. And so it's some of like my first earliest cartoon memories is these miniseries because they showed on primetime, and it was like she got all of her younger brothers together, sat us down, and was like, "You need to watch this." We're like, "What is it?" And then she kind of introduced us all to it. So it's some of my first earliest memories of sound are the sound effects from the G.I. Joe cartoons.
That's very cool. For me, the miniseries episodes are my favorite of all the cartoons. Of all the G.I. Joe cartoons, I love the 5-part miniseries. So I'm super glad that we're doing this. And obviously, loving G.I. Joe worked out for all of us.
Yeah.
My memory of watching it is my 2 best friends, Jez and Zach, knowing it was going to be happening after school that day and riding our bikes home as fast as we possibly could in just abject terror that we might miss a second of it. Just to remind the younger people out there that we were never going to see it again. There were no VCRs. There was no internet to watch it on. It was going to happen once, and if you missed it, you might as well just give it up because your life was never, ever going to be worth a damn. So we rode our bikes home as fast as we could. I believe we still had a solid hour and a half before we got home, but we just didn't want to take that chance that we might miss something. And sitting there in just breathless excitement at what was about to happen and loving every single second. I do take issue with some of the story things. We'll get into that later. But, I was a discerning critic of the G.I. Joe series originally.
Oh yeah, me too, for sure. It has things about it that I love and things about it that I don't love, but the overwhelming feeling from it's all good, right? It's all for the good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What was fun about it was I had only been reading the comics. And so when it didn't line up with the comics, that's where I had trouble.
Totally.
Were you reading the comics before you started watching the show?
for me, you know, this is so it started with then toys, then comics.
Gotcha.
To me, that's the perfect order to enter G.I. Joe. I was, so let's do ages really quick. I'm 41. How old are you guys?
I'm 46.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 48. I'll be 41 in the summer.
Okay.
I'm also 46.
Okay. So you guys, Jerwa and Tom, you guys are 5 years older than me and Rob, so we might have a different opinion of this. When I first saw G.I. Joe, I think it was 1984, 85, and the cartoon was the perfect entry point for a 6-year-old kid. Like, it was just silly and it was fun and it was, you know, just outlandish. The sound effects, to Robert's point earlier, the illustration animation style was amazing. I mean, it's all beautiful cell-frame animation that not a lot of that happens anymore. So the cartoon for me was the perfect entry point for a 6-year-old kid. And then I got into Larry Hama's comic, and that helped me ride the G.I. Joe wave through to my teenage years, because the comic was so much more mature and it was something that I could grow up with and you could learn from, like Larry Hama using the real, you know, military vernacular versus the cartoon, you know, having kind of giant growing farm threats, you know, like just wacky stuff.
Farm threats.
You know, like there was the giant growing cabbages or something. We'll get back there. It's been decades. But to Jerwa's point, my favorite was the two-parter Worlds Without End. So not a mini series, but the two-parter. I hope you guys make it that far. Worlds Without End is
That was a good one.
trippy and definitely like one of the more mature kind of storylines for the cartoon.
And
Yes.
deeply weird in the best way possible. Yeah, for me, going back to the other question, for me, it was toys and comics and then cartoon. But like literally all of those things were like day of, right? As soon as I saw the comic, I got the comic. As soon as I saw a toy, I got a toy. As soon as the cartoon started, I was there. Like I was literally hooked from the very first moment I saw any notion of G.I. Joe.
So for me, it was Christmas of 1982. I came downstairs that morning, and my mom had bought almost everything. There was one, I think it was the Cobra Soldier I didn't have. I had the Cobra Officer, but not the Cobra Soldier. And there was one vehicle, I believe it was the Flak Cannon, that I didn't have. And I actually recently learned at Joe Fest this past year that they had purposely priced everything so that parents could buy the entire G.I. Joe line for $100.
Yep.
And that's exactly what my mother did. And I had been addicted to Star Wars. Star Wars was my entire world. I literally have report cards from teachers telling my parents that there might be a problem with me because of how much I talked about Star Wars.
Tom, me too.
Yeah.
I used to get in trouble for drawing in the upper margin of my papers.
Yep. I remember at one point they called my mother in because I was using too much paper drawing Star Wars characters. So it's true. It's true. So for me, coming down that Christmas morning, I had no knowledge of G.I. Joe before that. And then I had this instant collection. And then shortly after that, I remember being at Kmart and seeing G.I. Joe number 17 and standing by the comic book rack waiting for my mom because I was afraid that somebody might take it and my mom might not buy it for me. And
we were the same
I was absolutely
kid,
hooked.
Tom.
Yeah. And then so after that, I think maybe a year or so had passed until the show came on. And I was all in. I was absolutely all in. And my friends and I, every day after school, was playing G.I. Joe. It was all we talked about. And I don't remember buying more than maybe a handful of Star Wars figures after that. Because
it became a choice. It became a real choice.
Well, yeah, the Star Wars figures, the elbows didn't bend, the knees didn't bend. They just weren't nearly as posable or interesting. And, I mean, as you can see, I've got some Star Wars stuff behind me. But, you know, G.I. Joe was really a big, big deal for me.
All right, so I think we're going to kind of just leave it short tonight. It's just a chance for us to kind of introduce us and give an idea of what we want to do, at least over the course of the mini-series, and we'll see if we can do more of these down the road. But overall, it'll be at least the three of us as a kind of general host. Carson's definitely helping us out tonight, and he has a plethora of knowledge. Like, he has so much more knowledge than any of us combined when it comes to like how deep the line goes and all that. So he's kind of
Carson,
a toy expert.
you like G.I. Joe, right?
A little bit.
Okay. All right, just a second.
We hope to have other guests on for the show, creators and content contributors, however you want to word it. But basically, just those of us who have had a chance to kind of work on it professionally, especially, and just kind of get feedback for anybody. So we hope that as we create a bit of a schedule for this, by all means, log in to, we'll be streaming this on Facebook. We'll be posting it again later to watch. But when we do the live Facebook post, you can hop into the comment section of the post on 3D Joe's on Facebook and ask questions. And we'll, as we see comments pop up, we'll address them too. So we want this to be as interactive as possible.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're doing this for the fun of it and for the joy of it and for the little kid and all of us. So please be cool. And,
All right, so I was going to check the comments real quick and see if we got anything other than folks picking on our technical errors. What's up, Tim? Okay, so that mouse arrow is so distracting. Quiet, Tim. The public service announcements were educational. They sure were. I'm sure we'll talk about the PSA some. Ed said that you guys look good. Yep. All right. Oh, and my mom said hi, so hi from my mom.
Hi, Carson's mom.
Hi, Carson's mom.
It occurs to me, if you're going to edit this in later, none of us actually said what we do and what our relationship professionally is to G.I. Joe.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
who's got samples? I've got a sample.
What kind of sample is he going to come back with?
Yeah.
This is my baby that it took me 4 years to make. 5 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
That thing's beautiful.
Every painting from 1982 to 1994.
Oh.
Yes, sir. I won't belabor it.
I can't tell you how much I regret not picking up that poster when you had that available. That thing is so cool.
Which one are you missing? I can send you them.
It's on the cover. The one.
Oh.
It's like.
Yeah, so there's Stars and Stripes is the one that Rudat did, and then To the Rescue is this one from the 1983 catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was a Kickstarter thing.
I know nothing about this project, and I am embarrassed because I want that.
It's gorgeous.
Well, the good news is we made 1,000 of these, and I sold through them in a year and a half, and we've done over 4,000 hours worth of work to make these. So we don't want it to be out of print. So what we're working on right now, and I don't know that I've actually announced this to the general public, so this is kind of an announcement. 550 page hardcover, 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches. And if we can make the Kickstarter stretch goal that I want, every 12-page signature will have a gatefold page. So picture it spread, and then picture another page opening up. So you have 4 pages going all the way across. It's going to be incredible. It's kind of like
great googly moogly.
I mean, I do video and animation for a living. This is my first big print project, and I've been working on it for like 5 years now, and it's just been fun. It's like it never stops giving, man. I get so much positive feedback from people, and obviously, I just love G.I. Joe, so I work on it when I can. When my client work is slow, I work on the books and the website.
Brandon, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Listen, looking at it on a tiny screen, I know I want it, so it must be great in real life.
Thank you.
That's really cool. That's really super cool. I am Brandon Jerwa, and I wrote some G.I. Joe comics for Devil's Due. The mainline series, G.I. Joe Frontline, Master and Apprentice 1 and Master and Apprentice 2, and Snake Eyes Declassified. I'm a G.I. Joe figure. I'm Dragonsky from the October Guard in the Toys R Us 3-pack. I didn't have a beard then. And I've written a few file cards, had a couple of characters I created made into figures, like Wraith. And I just love G.I. Joe with all of my heart, and I'm super glad to be here.
I'm Robert Atkins. I've been doing G.I. Joe for a big part of my career as far as drawing comics. Snake Eyes Declassified was actually my very first solo published book ever. So, which is pretty cool.
And he did pretty good on it too, guys.
Yeah, he did.
I did okay. It was my very first thing. Like, don't go find it. But at any rate, when IDW took over the license back in 2009, I came on as the one of the artists on the 3 book released at the time. So I was working with Chuck Dixon as the writer, and we did a series for quite a while. Then we did a spin-off series of Snake Eyes that I did for a couple years. So I had worked with IDW straight for about 4.5 years, I think, at the time. I'm currently on the G.I. Joe Real American Hero book that is coming out monthly, and we're doing the best we can. So at any rate, so that's out right now. I've probably done, I know I've done over 100 different G.I. Joe covers, published covers over the years. I've done some stuff with Hasbro in some concept for toys for the Joe line, but this was a little while back. So yeah, but it's been a huge part of my career. I absolutely love Joe as a kid, and I love everything I've been able to do for it professionally too.
Carson, all I see is Robert on my screen now.
That's okay. I just figured since he was having his moment, we'd spotlight him.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Here you go. Now you've got the same treatment.
Oh, no, that's bad because now I just have to look at me.
All the pressure.
Yeah, right? God, I wish I was Robert Atkins.
So do I.
So
he's got a really good hairline.
So does my wife. Robert, I love you, buddy. I wish I could see him blush. So my name's Tom Feister. I started out working on covers for Marvel and DC. Spent some time working on a book called Ex Machina, and then transitioned into doing covers on G.I. Joe Origins. I got to do a little bit of interior work on G.I. Joe, not as much as I would have liked, but I was on G.I. Joe covers for about 3 years. I spent the last year or so working in animation, do a lot of licensing art for Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. So you've probably seen my work on Rick and Morty DVD covers lately. The series that I'm working on right now as a character designer, I'm not allowed to talk about, but I'm really enjoying the work, and I'm working with some really talented people and some G.I. Joe fans as well.
Awesome.
Well, very cool. Do you guys want to wrap it up for tonight, and then we can kind of hit the ground running with the episodes?
Wrap it up.
Sounds good. Happy to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me
Now
along.
you know.
And knowing is
Yeah.
It's something.
Oh,
Sure
Good.
is.
He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe! American hero! G.I. Joe is there!